Hello and welcome to another episode of the Smile Code, where today we're going to be diving into the wisdom of the ages and explore how it can transform our lives today. I'm Dr. Isi Quaid, and today we're talking about something profoundly powerful, something that every one of us has within, yet many overlook or don't fully trust, and that is intuition. How did ancient civilizations harness its power? How can we develop it in our techno-driven world? And what might its role be in the future, perhaps even with the help of artificial intelligence? I remember years ago when my kids were toddlers, 2 and 4 years old. I had taken them with me to the office one Friday morning. I didn't see patients on Fridays, and my babysitter was unavailable that day, so I bundled them up into my very old Mercedes 190E. On my way to the office, I noticed a weird grating sound on the car, and I thought, what is that? I thought to myself that I was going to have it checked out, maybe that day or the following week, just to make sure that it was nothing serious. Now, after about 2 hours at the office, the kids were getting a little bit restless and hungry, of course, and so I decided to head home. I had a meal already prepared for them. Now, as we got into the car, the kids suddenly started whining about how extremely hungry they were. We were only about 20 minutes from home, and even though I hated them snacking on chicken nuggets from McDonald's, I felt this compelling urge to satiate their hunger that very moment. And so I turned into the local McDonald's drive-thru and bought them a snack. Now, because of the detour, I was forced to take the back roads through a residential neighborhood to get back on the freeway. The grating sound on the car seemed louder than before, and as I approached a stop sign at the end of the second residential block, and came to a complete stop, I heard a loud noise and the car jerked as my whole engine, the whole inside of the car under the hood, came crashing onto the concrete road. I could not believe what was happening. An older gentleman sitting on his porch saw this happen, and he yelled at me. "Lady," he said, "do you know how lucky you are?" And he was right. If the car had been in motion at all, or worse yet, if I hadn't stopped to get my kids a snack and been on the freeway doing most likely 40 to 60 miles an hour, that would definitely have been the end of us. So listening to my intuition that day saved our lives. And I am forever grateful to that still voice that almost always points us in the right direction if we learn to develop it and to trust it. So today we're going to be talking about intuition. So sit tight, and when we come back, we'll begin our exploration of it. So let's start off by talking about the intuitive wisdom of ancient cultures. In the ancient world, intuition wasn't a mysterious or fringe concept. It was often viewed as a direct connection to the divine, to the universe, or to some hidden source of knowledge. Civilizations revered it, not as an afterthought, but as one of the primary ways to understand the world around them. Let me take you on a journey on some of these remarkable cultures and their use of intuition. Let's start off with the Babylonian and Egyptian astrologers. Imagine ancient Babylonian astronomers looking up at the night sky. They didn't have telescopes. They didn't have satellites or the scientific tools we rely on today. But they had their eyes, their patterns of observation. And here's the key: they had their intuition. These astrologers noticed how celestial bodies moved, and more importantly, they felt that these movements weren't random. They intuited that the cosmos and the human world were connected. Through their intuition, they began to recognize patterns between planetary alignments and earthly events. Now, while modern science separates astrology from astronomy, what those early stargazers did was something extraordinary. They combined detailed observation with intuitive leaps, leading to some of the first attempts at predicting eclipses and tracking planetary orbits. We now know their calculations were quite accurate, especially considering their tools were simple sticks and stones. Next, let's look at the healing touch of the ancient shamans, the Ayurvedas, and Chinese medicine. Moving away from the stars for a moment, let's look at these ancient healers. Across cultures, from shamans and indigenous tribes to practitioners of Ayurveda in India and traditional Chinese medicine, intuition was central to healing. These healers didn't rely on labs or clinical trials. They connected with their patients through energy, spirit, and nature. Shamans, for instance, would enter altered states of consciousness through drumming or plant medicines, relying heavily on their intuition to understand the root causes of illness. They would journey into different realms of existence to retrieve knowledge they believed could only be accessed by bypassing the rational mind. And what's fascinating is that many of their herbal remedies and treatments have stood the test of time and are now being validated by modern science. So now let's look at how ancient civilizations some of them built their empires. Let's look at the Egyptian architects and the Roman engineers. Even in practical realms like architecture and engineering, intuition played a surprising role. Think about the pyramids of Egypt, perfectly aligned with the cardinal points of the earth, and celestial bodies like Orion's belt. Or the Romans, whose aqueducts and roads stretched across vast landscapes with almost surgical precision. These feats weren't just about physical labor or trial and error. They required an intuitive sense of balance, symmetry, and flow. Sacred geometry, the belief that certain shapes and proportions held divine power, was a guiding principle. It's almost as if these builders had a deep subconscious understanding of the universe's harmony, applying this felt sense to their work, creating structures that have lasted millennia. So you might be asking yourself, that's all well and good for ancient times, but how can intuition be developed and used in today's fast-paced, tech-driven world? The good news is intuition is just as accessible today as it was in the ancient world. The challenge is learning how to reconnect with it in a world that prioritizes logic, data, and the external over the internal. Let's start with a few techniques that can help develop intuition. First, let's talk about mindfulness and meditation. Now, just like the mystics and shamans, we can also develop intuition by quieting the mind. Practices like meditation, especially those that focus on breath or body awareness, help us tap into our subconscious and learn to listen to the subtle nudges from within. Ancient yogis in India believed this opened the third eye, which was said to be the seat of intuitive knowledge. Secondly, it's important to spend time in nature. Ancient cultures saw nature as a mirror to the soul. By reconnecting with the natural world, taking mindful walks, observing animals, listening to the rustling of trees and leaves, you can awaken your deeper instincts and intuitive feelings. Indigenous healers often said they could sense the properties of a plant simply by being with it in silence. Another strategy for building or developing your intuition is dream journaling. Many ancient cultures, from the Egyptians to the Greeks, saw dreams as windows into another reality. Keeping a dream journal allows you to notice recurring symbols, feelings, and patterns. Over time, you'll start to see how your dreams can provide intuitive guidance, just as the ancients believed. I remember a real distinct personal instance of this. I awoke, I believe it was September 10th, 2001. This is right before the 9/11 terrorist attacks. I was a part-time trader. I traded the S&P 500 just for fun. And I was used to looking at charts and trading symbols and just usually did that in the mornings. But on September 10th, when I was about to wake up, I was sort of still in a dream state. I remember a trading symbol, which is called the dancing doji. It's like an inverted symbol, flashing brightly, brilliantly in my mental screen. And I thought, what the heck is that? But it was a symbol that usually means that the market is going to turn downward. And so I thought, I wonder if something's happening. So for that day, I shorted the market, thinking, well, that was some kind of sign that things were going to go downhill. So I traded down. I shorted the markets that day with no real results or a real direction. And at the end of the day, there was a little voice that said just carry my positions to the next day. But I thought, it's too risky. I'm just going to go ahead and close out my positions. And we all know what happened the next day before the market opened. We had the terrorist attacks of September 11th, and the market actually did not open on September 11th. It did not open for, I believe, a number of days because everything was in free fall. It was horrible. And there was nothing that anyone could do. When the market did reopen several days later, it had fallen so far down. If I had listened to my intuitive voice and held my positions overnight, I would have made 7 figures. But of course, I hadn't listened to my voice, inner voice, or paid no real attention to that symbol that had flashed on my mental screen that previous morning. And so the rest of it is history. I mean, I don't know how I would have felt anyway, making so much money when everything was in such chaos. So it was probably a good thing. But our intuitive senses are real key for us sometimes to just make decisions and take actions that don't seem supported by the evidence around us. So moving right along, another way to develop our intuition is through art and creativity. Creative pursuits like writing, painting, music are often where intuition shines. Have you ever had a moment where you're in the flow and ideas just seem to come from nowhere? That's your intuition speaking. The more you create, the more you strengthen this intuitive muscle. So now let's talk about the future of intuition and technology. This is kind of uncharted territory. How might intuition influence the future, especially in our high-tech world? One question I keep hearing is, can AI develop intuition? And can AI help us strengthen our own intuition? Right now, AI is built, or artificial intelligence is built on logic, pattern recognition, and massive amounts of data, which, interestingly enough, mirrors how ancient astrologers or mathematicians combined observation with insight. Now, while AI itself doesn't possess intuition in the human sense, it can process patterns at a speed and depth we simply cannot. In a way, artificial intelligence could potentially augment our intuition, helping us sift through large amounts of data to make intuitive decisions more effectively. Imagine an AI that, based on your actions, preferences, and history, nudges you towards a choice that feels right. It could become a powerful tool for decision making. Now, how can intuition help transform the modern world? Well, in the future, I believe intuition will become an even more valued skill. As our world becomes more complex and data-driven, intuition will serve as a counterbalance, a way to cut through the noise and arrive at insights faster than analytics can provide. We're already seeing the importance of gut feelings in fields like business, healthcare, and even technology development. The CEOs of some of the most innovative companies often credit their success to following intuition when logic might have pointed them elsewhere. Moreover, as we face global challenges, climate change, social inequality, rapid technological change, intuition may provide us with creative, empathetic, and holistic solutions that logic alone cannot offer. So the conclusion is that we have to learn to trust our inner knowing. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a parent, a clinician, or someone simply looking to navigate life's ups and downs, developing your intuition can be your secret weapon. We don't need to fully understand it to trust it, just as the ancients did. Their civilizations, their architecture, their medicine, all left lasting legacies, and much of it came from following that inner sense of knowing. Now, as we move forward into an increasingly digital world, intuition could be the key to keeping us grounded, connected, and human. And who knows, with AI as a partner, we might just unlock even greater dimensions of intuitive power that we've ever imagined. Well, I hope today's episode gave you new insight into the timeless power of intuition. If you want to explore more about how to develop your own intuitive skills or discover how ancient wisdom can transform your life, join me on upcoming episodes where I will share some truly powerful and incredible stories and techniques. And please remember to join the conversation. So until next time, remember to trust your inner knowing, and don't forget to keep smiling. See you soon.